My story starts a bit after the beginning. Like I said this morning, I really don't want to explain the beginning to you, because if you don't know that by now, you're never gonna. But it starts when I was about 5, and I just finished my first week of primary school, and as everyone knows, you get like a Year 6 buddy to, show you around the school and whatnot. And I come home to Mum after my first week of primary school, and I come home and said, "Mum, have you ever wanted to be a boy so you can have a girlfriend?" She said, "No, Madeline, you shouldn't think like that." And I went, "Oh, okay, so fair enough." I didn't really think about it, but, right through primary school, there was always one girl that I had feelings for in an innocent kind of way. Not long after that, I was about 6, and I was sexually abused as a child for almost 12 months by my mum's boss's son. I carried that with me, told no one about it for 20 odd years. Only recently my father found out when I knew I was going to give my testimony here, and I couldn't let him hear about it secondhand, so I had to tell him first, basically. Early last year, God gave me the courage to forgive him for what he did. I don't condone what he did at all, but I had to let it go, and I had to be able to forgive that. We fast forward to about when I was about 12, and my best friend Amy I was introduced to by my father, and she was, I call my sister in God. She's the one person who's always been there for me. Started off by taking me to her church in Foster and Youth Alives and stuff like that, and it was all good fun. I gave my life to God, I suppose, but I got frustrated because I couldn't hear God like most Christians heard God. I couldn't, you hear them talk about him saying things to them. I'm like, well, why doesn't he talk to me? It's because I found out I wasn't listening. Tell you the truth, but so I was about 13, 14, and these feelings that I'd struggled with in primary school came back with an absolute vengeance. And it was something that was a really, really scary time for me, because as you do when you're a kind of a new Christian and you're struggling with something, you turn to the Bible. And the Bible told me that I was evil and that I was wrong and that I was an abomination, and that, everything about me, something that I didn't choose, something that I didn't want, I was suddenly the worst person in the world, and it broke me, it crushed me. And not long after that, my mum died, which was a really, really hard time for me. She was my whole world. My mother was everything to me. My mum and dad had split earlier, and losing her was one of the biggest blows that I've ever experienced. So, as you do when, you're hurting, you get angry with God. You're like, here's this one thing about me that you wouldn't change, that I struggle with, that I didn't want, I didn't choose, and now you take my mum away from me. I didn't want to know about God, so I denied him. High school was a real struggle, because not only was I struggling with the secret that I couldn't tell anyone, more than one secret, my mum died and I was the girl that everyone pitied, basically. And I started drinking early on, but it got to about 17, and I'd obviously been struggling with my sexuality for some time when my dad brings it up in conversation Christmas Eve at my sister's place one night, and he said something along the lines of, Mel's not too sure about her sexuality like this. I said, well, actually, Dad, I've kind of realised. And he's like, oh yeah, what's that? I said, oh, well, I like girls. And he said, well, it's about time you told me, because I thought I was going to have to tell you. But that right there, he also turned around and said something to the effect of, it's okay, Mel, I'm a lesbian too. But that right there was my first experience of unconditional love. That is a father's love for a child, the kind of love that God has for us, you know what I mean? And it did a lot to ease the hurt, but obviously I was still hurting for so many reasons. And when you don't have God in your life, when you don't have that connection, because we're created as spiritual beings, you go looking for it in all the wrong places. So I filled that longing with drugs and alcohol and bad relationships, the worst kind of relationships. And right throughout, pretty much from 17 onwards, the last 11 years, it's been one thing after another. It was about 5 years ago that I walked away from drugs completely. And that was actually an ex-girlfriend of mine that convinced me to do that. She didn't want me to do it anymore, and I did, and I haven't looked back since. I was probably only recently delivered of an alcohol sort of abuse. I was never an addict, but it was always a crutch. You know, it was something that I just used to turn to get by, basically, write myself off and forget about the world. And it was probably only late last year that I was actually delivered of that, when God told me to put a beer down, and I did. And so about 23, 24, a particular relationship had broken up, and I was feeling really lost and really broken, and I was laying in bed one night, and up until this point I'd denied God completely. I'd still, you know, you hate me, I hate you, let's just leave it at that sort of thing. And got to about 23, 24, and I'm laying in bed after this relationship breakup one night, and for those of you who know where I live, you know there's no neighbours around where I am. Nobody can make noise at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm laying in bed one night, and this music comes out of nowhere, and I'm like trying to pinpoint where it's coming from, and every time I think I've pinpointed it, it moves, and I'm starting to get a bit freaked out, you know. I'm a little bit weirded out by this, filled with this awestruck wonder, and in a pitch black room. I mean, there were no lights on, no light sources coming from anywhere. I'm laying in my bed, this cross appears on my roof. Okay, that's it for me. Like, I'm just about ready to ring the loony bin. And I'm sitting there shaking. I'm just thinking, all I could think of was, okay, I believe. And it stopped. And I went, oh, okay. Went to sleep. It was all good. Anyways, next morning, I think I'd had a fight with that particular ex, and I was crying in the shower, which is where I do all my crying because nobody can tell. And I reached out to God for the first time, and I said, God, if you're there, God, if you're listening, I need you, because I have made such a pitiful mess of my life. I'm so lost, and I can't do this without you anymore. And for the first time, God broke through, and he said to me, Mel, I love you. I have a plan for you. I just want to know you. I want you to know me. And filled with this peace and this joy like I'd never experienced before, I said, okay, what do you want me to do? And he went, go to church. And I went, God, I don't know if you've realised, church doesn't like me very much.